Today I finally get to talk about Rhys, the brand new VR game coming up from nDreams that's set to launch on October 16th for the PSVR 2, Quest and PCVR. I had a chance to spend some real hands-on time with this one. A couple of weeks ago I was invited up to an event in London where I got to play around 45 minutes of Rhys. Since then the devs were kind enough to send me out early access builds to both the PCVR and the Quests. So not only am I able to capture my own footage, but I can actually compare how the game looks between the Quest and PCVR. Now I've not actually had the chance to play this on PSVR 2 yet, but of course that's going to look pretty much the same as the PC anyway. So I'm going to be walking you through my experience, breaking it down into first impressions, combat, movements, stories, visuals and overall thoughts. All of these things are going to be chaptered. Now let's dive into it. First impressions. Well, right off the bat I was really impressed. The game looks fantastic on both PCVR and Quest. Now my PC isn't exactly top of the line, but even then the game still looked bloody incredible. On the Quest it's obviously dialed back a little, but honestly I was surprised just how close they managed to get it to the PC version on a standalone headset. The demo opens up in a kind of tutorial section where you learn sort of like the core mechanics: running, jumping, climbing, smashing through windows. Yeah, smashing through windows, it's pretty dope. And it just feels super fluid. The movement is both smooth, responsive and actually pretty damn fun. The combat training starts early on as well. The bow feels rock solid and the gadgets as well throughout the demo. The game wastes absolutely no time making you feel like a total badass. The only thing that took me a little bit of time to get used to was the grappling hook, but once it kind of clicks, it really adds to the flow of the traversal. And then there's the presentation. Great visuals, strong voice acting and a clever VR storytelling that really pulls you into the world and makes you feel super present inside of it. Right away I could tell this wasn't just another VR game that's sort of being churned out. This feels like a cinematic, polished and immersive experience. Now let's talk about combat and weapons. The weapons in Rhys are a huge highlight for me, and I wanted to just highlight a few of the different ones I got to try out. Starting off with the shield. You summon it by making this like OK symbol with your fingers and then flicker the wrist, and every single time it feels bloody amazing. You can throw it like Captain America, you can block incoming attacks, or even stick it into the walls and use it as a climbing point. There's a ton to do with the shield and it just feels super satisfying every single time you get it out. Then there's the bow. The bow is clean, precise and extremely satisfying to use. What really stands out to me is actually the ammo system for this. You don't just find quivers of arrows. In this you actually find these weird little bug nests around the map. You have to pull out the bug, grab it and then squish them in your hand, and then your suit then turns that into different arrow types. It's weird but oddly satisfying and makes scavenging around for ammo just a little bit more interactive than just picking up crap off the floor. This just makes it feel like a bit more of an interesting mechanic to be able to do. The grapple hook itself is a little tricky like I said before, but once you get the hang of it, it completely changes how you move through the world, as you can use it for traversal or as an attacking tool as well, yanking enemies off balance, and you can even grab their weapons off them when you do this. Now there is a gun in the game that you get to experience kind of briefly at the beginning of the game, but I don't think they're going to be a massive part of the full game, at least not from what I've seen so far. It seems like the feature is more going to be focused on stuff like the bow than it is the gun, but still the gunplay did feel pretty damn good, so I'm not complaining about that too much. The enemies I got to fight in this are pretty awesome so far. I got to fight like a light version and a heavier version. Some of the encounters are pretty brutal, like you can sneak up behind them and literally rip their spines out Mortal Kombat style, or you can even take them down in just more traditional standard ways. Either way, the combat feels really meaty, satisfying and kind of varied, keeping it nice and interesting. You can go at it from like a quiet point of view if you want to, or of course you can go for that full-on attack, which just feels awesome. I have to be a tank in every game I play, it's just the way it is. And from there, let's get into movement and immersion. If you're a VR veteran like me, then this is a really seamless game. The movement just feels bloody awesome. The parkour is front and center here, from running, climbing, grappling and smashing through environments, all coming together in a way that just feels super natural in VR. But at the same point, nDreams has clearly thought about accessibility, as there's a lot of comfort options in here, so even if you're a bit newer to VR and prone to motion sickness, you'll still be able to tweak things to make it feel right for you, which is so important. And honestly, a lot of games truly just forget about the comfort values for people like me who want it all out, or even people that just want it a little bit more comfortable and put those sort of blinders on a little bit to make this a comfortable experience for you. So it's good to see that all of that stuff is existing inside of the game. And now let's talk about the story. Now I won't go too deep into this because I don't want to give you too many spoilers, but from what I've played, the story feels pretty damn engaging and got a bunch of really fun twists and turns. The demo starts with what seems like a spy mission scene where you're being chased by enemies, until you realise that this is actually staged and you're a stunt performer. That surprising hook got me kind of right away, just intriguing me into what was actually going to be happening. Then you jump into a later section that's just showing sort of like the larger world, underground environments and collapsing cities above you, with these weird zero gravity objects floating around which are really fun to interact with, and a mix of surreal set pieces and cinematic moments that just look absolutely incredible in VR. Now let me play a couple for you, because all of this stuff just made me feel super immersed in the game, and it was just really fun to see. One of the highlights for me was actually meeting one of like the NPCs in the game. This is a guy you're going to be working with quite a lot. He's a living statue, and you are trying to work with him to be able to save the world from another living statue, which is the big bad entity in this game. The interactions felt really immersive and hinted at like a much bigger story that's going to be coming later in the game, but one of the things I found quite interesting is they let you freely move through these sort of story beats, and even to the point where the statue will keep eye contact with you, and it just feels super natural inside of the game rather than these sort of dodgy cutscenes that we see in some other story stuff. From what the devs have told me, this should be about an 8 to 10 hour game if you complete it just by like running and gunning this thing. Depending on your playstyle, I think it's going to be pretty solid length for a VR campaign. Personally, I like sort of like that 8 to 10 hour mark. I think it's something that I'll actually finish. So many games are just too long in my opinion, or too damn short. This feels like it's hitting a sweet spot for me, but I'd love your opinion on that in the comments down below. What do you think the ideal length for a VR game is? Now let's talk about PC VR versus Quest. Well, obviously, let's talk about the visuals, but again, obviously, PCVR is just going to win every single time. That's a no-brainer, but the reason I wanted to highlight this actually is because this is really impressive that the Quest has even managed to pull off getting even remotely close to what the PC can do. Everything looks super sharp, natural and detailed. Lighting and textures and particle effects look absolutely gorgeous on the PC. It's really dialed up and just makes it feel just gorgeous. That said, the Quest version, like I said, is honestly bloody impressive. Now, the only time you really start to see it fall apart is things at distance, because, well, the Quest just can't handle that kind of stuff, so you get a bit of aliasing on stuff. But in general, it looks pretty damn good. Although it's scaled back, it really just delivers that large scale game feel, and after a little while inside of it, you really stop noticing like the crappier parts to it, and you just start enjoying and being immersed inside of the game. Everything up close looks bloody good though, I will say that. I haven't seen the PSVR 2 build, like I said, but if it's on par with the PC visually, then the PS5 owners are in for an absolute bloody treat, because this game's gorgeous. Not just that, but you'll also have the adaptive triggers on the PSVR 2, and you'll have the head haptics as well, which I think is going to play a critical part in this game overall. Now, my overall thoughts on this, after spending some time with Reach across multiple builds and platforms, I'm excited to say that I'm actually more excited than ever for a full release. I've actually had a chance to play this at different versions of the game over the last couple of years. I've played a bunch of different builds from the developers, and this is really the first time it feels really cohesive and everything has really come together to make a real AAA VR feeling experience. I really didn't have a lot of high hopes for this game really up until this demo in particular. This is the one that's really changed my mind and made me realize that actually we could be in for a real freaking treat with this game. It's a mix of cinematic storytelling, fluid movements, creative combat mechanics, and it makes Reach really stand out. If nDreams can deliver that full 8 to 10 hour campaign, making this feel engaging the entire way through it, I think this is going to be one of the more memorable VR releases we've had in a really long time. I'll definitely be covering more of Reach as we get closer to its launch, so make sure if you have any questions or anything like that, drop them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. So that's my early look at Reach. It hits PSVR 2, Quest and PCVR, like I said, on October 16th, so you can go wishlist this now if you're interested. And honestly, I think this one you're going to want to keep an eye on. Now, of course, as always, wait for reviews and everything before you actually purchase this game. I do think that's probably always the smartest thing, because we've only been shown a snippet of what the game is right here. But if you enjoyed the video and it helped you sort of like understand the game a little bit more, maybe you could consider smashing that like button, because I'd really appreciate it. And of course, if you're new to the channel, then subscribe. It really helps the channel out, and maybe we can get to 100k one day. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out. Bye.